One of the most important parts of a story-driven RPG is, believe it or not, the story. If you want a good story and interesting characters, then Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger could be for you. If you just want to complete a bunch of fetch quests, then look no further than Breath of Fire. You know the game's going to be great when the first thing you do is get out of bed, go over to a burning chest, definitely not some random person's dresser that I'm rummaging through and taking items out of, and then get an item called a V.PTN. It's one thing to make the protagonist's name 4 letters or less, but there is no reason to abbreviate all of the item names. How is Vitamna an acceptable word to put in a video game? And what is Merble 3 supposed to mean? When you use it, random encounters are essentially turned off for a short time. In the Japanese version, it was called Protective Smoke. Somehow that got translated to Marble. Maybe the phrase was put through 30 different languages in Google Translate before it was switched back to English. Yeah, that's probably what they did back in 1994. Breath of Fire's story is simple. Basically, the light dragons are the good guys, and the dark dragons are the bad guys. Ryu, the main character, is one of the only light dragons still alive. And what do you know it? This kid is the hero who has to save the whole world by collecting 6 keys. A pretty original premise for an RPG, I'll give Capcom that much. To be fair, the game isn't built around the idea of collecting 6 keys. The whole reason Ryu decides to set out on an adventure is because his hometown got destroyed by the Dark Dragons, and his sister was taken away. Before Ryu leaves, he gets a little send-off from a couple of the townsfolk. Come back if you need a rest. Oh, thanks. This is a really comfy looking place. I guess I'll just snuggle up in the fireplace or something. After getting a splendid night's rest and purchasing a piece of cloth that is apparently supposed to be worn as armor, Ryu heads to Kamon. This is the first time that you get to fight some enemies. Breath of Fire's battle system is similar to many of the turn-based RPGs of its time. The enemies have a life bar, which is a pretty cool feature, but otherwise, it's very traditional and gets a little bit old after a while, which is why you need to use those Merble 3s. Once Ryu reaches Kamon, he is faced with the first of many dungeons. This one might actually be my favorite. The layout is simple and it's easy to traverse. I never like getting bombarded with random enemy encounters as I cluelessly wander around complicated dungeons in search of an exit, which eventually did end up happening, but at this point in time, I was still young and innocent. I still believed that there was some hope for this world. Or, at the very least, this game. After you complete the dungeon in Kamon, the real fun begins. And by the real fun, I mean the fetch quests. Before the king has a chance to finish congratulating you for getting rid of all the monsters, an earthquake shakes the city. He then tells you to go to Nani? To stop something known as the quake control. So you walk to the next town, sneak past some guards, have a staring contest with a guard, watch as a guard has a staring contest with a bush, and enter the next dungeon. After this dungeon is completed, you pull a key out of a machine and destroy the whole town. You gave up Nani? To destroy the forces of the Dark Dragons. It was a tough choice to make. Yeah, because I totally knew that pulling a key out of a machine was going to bury an entire town of people in their grave. What a good choice I made. If you still don't believe me about the whole fetch quest thing, then just listen to this. Later on in the game, Ryu and his friends get tasked with entering a dungeon. In order to do this, they need an old man's wisdom. But before the man is willing to give up his secrets, he asks for a B-Rang. That's short for boomerang, because why would you put in all the effort of writing out the whole word? That would just make too much sense. Anyways, you have to go back to an old dungeon that you've already completed and break the B-Rang out of a rock. Unfortunately, the weapon is broken, so you have to take it to a certain town and get it fixed. You then return to the old man and he gives you some vague advice that sounds like more of a riddle than anything else. You then have to go back through another dungeon that you've already completed before in order to go to a forest and kill a bird, you get an egg, you throw an egg into the dungeon. That causes a bunch of chaos. Yeah, it's really just convoluted. These fetch quests wouldn't be so bad if the main characters were more interesting. You would think that most of the members of your party were mute with the way that they never talk. I couldn't even give you a general description of what most of their personalities are supposed to be. All I know is that people call Nina annoying, and Gobi is actually annoying. Ox starts out as an interesting character. He and all the rest of his people were abducted by the Dark Dragons and forced to forge powerful weapons. He even has a wife who got kidnapped and needs saving. But what are the first words that come out of her mouth the second she sees her husband? They loaded the weapon onto a ship. You must stop them. She doesn't take the time to mention that she missed Ox or Maybe that she loves him, or maybe that she's grateful he showed up to save her. No, she doesn't even say hi. She just immediately tells you where to go next. She may as well have been another nameless NPC. Although, now that I think about it, she is nameless. They didn't even give her a name, just Ox's wife. Don't get me wrong, Breath of Fire has some weird and interesting moments, like the time when I stumbled upon a kid who was trapped behind a locked door in a basement. That was one of the more disturbing things I got to see that day. And keep in mind that only a few minutes before, I had been watching a wolf and a human being get married. In spite of all the strange happenings, the dialogue feels lifeless. It's not a great sign when a random fisherman has more personality than one of your allies who sticks with you throughout the entire game. Now at this point you may be wondering, does Breath of Fire have any redeemable traits whatsoever? Yes it does. As I mentioned earlier, Ryu is a member of the Light Dragons, and as a result, has the ability to transform into a dragon during battle. If this doesn't look epic to you, and worth spending 12 hours of your life to reach a point when you finally unlock the first dragon transformations, then I'm sorry, but it may not be possible to impress you. Another neat feature is that Bo can use his bow and arrow to murder innocent animals and harvest their bodies. And yeah, Bo uses a bow. Pretty clever, Capcom. A character named Karn has the ability to fuse with other characters, which greatly increases his HP and attack power. His most powerful transformation is known as Puka, and if that doesn't sound disgusting enough, then just look at it. The soundtrack is alright by RPG standards, or at least the first 3 notes of each track are. For whatever reason, each time you finish a battle against the enemies that are randomly encountered every 10 seconds or so, the music that was playing in the background starts over again. I recognize that all these things have been backhanded compliments, so I'm just going to try to say something nice about this game without making any rude remarks. A few of the bosses were decent. Now at this point, you may be wondering, would I recommend Breath of Fire to anyone? No, I wouldn't. Look, I understand that some people grew up with this game and think that it's a masterpiece. And it's okay to have that opinion. I respect your opinion. As a matter of fact, I'm glad that you have that opinion. I think one of the beautiful things about our world is that we all have these different minds, these different thought processes, and different experiences that lead us to have different feelings about things. But that doesn't change the fact that you're completely wrong.